Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Shawna on the podcast. She's coming to us all the way from New Zealand. She's actually our first guest that's at New Zealand at the moment. We've had a lot of Australians on, but never someone from New Zealand. But yeah, she's had a long journey in this lifestyle, and I'm really just excited to have her on and share her story and ask her some questions. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Shawna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it so much. It's been a while since I've been interviewed, so I'm definitely primed and ready to go.
Hey, that is great. I'm not even going to ask what the weather's like. That's normally what I ask because I just see how sunny it is outside next to you. So I'm going to save myself that embarrassment first off. So just to get things started, I always ask this to, really to get things started. Why don't you just give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're at right now?
It's really interesting because you talk to any person that's ever achieved anything, and it usually starts from something that happened in childhood, a dream. And that's where mine started from. I was a big fan of muscular bodies and cartoons, and so it started from that point. And then I started running around showing people my biceps and asking them to feel them when I was a little girl.
So you were that kid. Everyone knows that
I was
kid.
that
Yeah.
kid. I was such a tomboy, and I was into sports, I was into all these other things, but I always wanted to be as strong as the boys. So I was very frustrated that I could see a boy do something that I couldn't, and I thought, okay, this is something's got to change. And interestingly enough, when I was 15, I was watching ESPN, and I saw Corey Everson, and she had her own workout show. And I had my own sand weights, and I just started working out in front of the TV with her. And I was more like staring at her body because I was just infatuated with muscles. And when I first was inspired, there wasn't any women with muscles that I could see. I'd get Muscle and Fitness, and there'd be like a guy on the cover, and they might have a sexy woman with him, and then I'd be a little bit disappointed in that. So most of my role models were males in the beginning. And then I thought, okay, let's see what else is out there. And I met my first female bodybuilder at a competition in Spokane, Washington. My sister surprised me for my birthday and took me to a show. It was USA versus USSR. This is dating myself. But yeah, they had teams back then. And there was a woman there that came out. And I just remember my jaw dropping when I saw her in person. And she's like, "Do you want a picture?" I said, and my sister goes, "Yes, she does." She pushes me over. She flexes her arm, and I'm like this. I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's my long story, but it's manifested since then.
Just to date me a little bit, I was born 3 years after the Soviet Union collapsed. So
Okay.
that's just, hey, no, that's great because it's great to have someone that's seen how much this lifestyle has changed and what have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen going from then to now, because it's a completely different lifestyle, completely different sport in general.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the shift in everything that's happening in this world, right? So, when you see how women, came out in the 80s and they were accepted, and, people were, in awe over their bodies, but they had, a smaller physique, most of them did. They were more figure looking bodies. And then you can see the evolution happening over time. But, that really takes place based on what the judges are rewarding. So if the judge rewards someone who's bigger, obviously the girls are going to be like, okay, that sets the bar. So now you have to keep moving up the scale. And so then they got to a point where women were getting too big, what they were saying, too big. So we need to bring in women's physique and women's figure, and then have the bikini line and all that stuff. And it's good that they have a category for everyone to fit into, because not everyone wants to achieve the level of a female bodybuilder. It's too much for them. Maybe it's just not their thing, and it's totally cool. So I would say, watching female bodybuilders become the minority has been a very interesting thing. And then you have Jake Woods, who came in with Wings of Strength and saved the sport, and promoting girls like crazy. Like, really, it's amazing how much work he's put into that. And you can see like the dynamics also in social media changing. And you're seeing, like, back in the early 2000s when I was training clients, girls were like, "I don't want an ass, I don't want legs, I want skinny legs, skinny ass. And I'm like, okay, now it's completely done a 180. And that's really what girls want. But this is a stepping stone to women like wanting to build more upper body muscle too. So we'll see what happens in the future with that. I mean, we're already seeing it.
That's one of the most hilarious things because I remember even in middle school and early high school, and some of the girls that I talked to would just be like, "Oh my god, she has such a huge butt. I don't want that. That's gross," and stuff like just how much it's shifted since then. Because yeah, even I have a semblance of that. But before we even get into more of you know the lifestyle, you live in New Zealand. How did that come to be, and what was that like? Was it an adjustment to be living on the opposite side of the world?
Yeah, I would never thought I'd be living here. In fact, I'm just like most Americans are like, where the hell is New Zealand? Right. And then I met someone first. It's a long story. I probably shouldn't go into details. It's kind of like our little secret. But I ended up coming to New Zealand and doing a holiday, and I met him here. So I met my partner here, and we just kept in communication. Went back to the U.S., did some more traveling, and we ended up, let's meet again. And from there it was kind of all history. So basically, guy brought me here, and here I am.
Hey, she does have the time difference thing down pat because I remember when she was messaging me, she already had like ahead of time. She's like, "Oh, it's gonna be like 4 hours behind you the next day," and it took me a while to sort of realize that. But yeah, I always just find that fascinating how people just through
uh,
different time
It
zones.
is an adjustment. It's an adjustment, and you think, oh, it's a Western country. It's going to be similar to America, but it's not. It's Australians are different than New Zealanders. Like, and so are people in the UK. They're completely different. It's just a really interesting thing to fit into a new society, and they're not used to seeing women that are muscular like me. So yes, I get a lot of looks here, and I've had to adjust to that, and also explain to people, because the what the narrative is in the world right now, that I am a female and I have muscles. And that has been the hardest thing that I've had to, I think, adjust to, is like understanding that people are going to look at me different. They're going to have questions, but at the same time, I really don't want to focus on that. I just want to do me, because if you focus on that other stuff all the time, you're just going to be distracted, and it's not me.
I just want some bodybuilders to come from New Zealand so they can do that dance that they do as part of like their routine or something like that. That would be awesome. That's just what I'm waiting for because I always see videos of that and I was like, oh, that's so cool that they do that. So into your bodybuilding journey, I always love to ask this because everyone's genetics are different. No matter how hard I would try to look like Jay Cutler, I'm not going to end up looking like him no matter what. If I were to do exactly what he does, all the workouts, all the training. But whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And they have that one body part that really, really drags behind that they have to train to oblivion. What was one body part that really took off for you? And what was one body part that you've just dragged behind?
Yeah, legs has always been easiest for me. My legs and calves, they just I don't have to train them, and they maintain themselves. But actually, to get them bigger, I do have to work a little harder. It's there's always one spot that is your biggest body part, but there's still like maybe your hamstrings are lagging or something. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm just building up my legs a little bit more, even though it's my strongest. My shoulders were my lagging body part. I would say that was the hardest for me to build and the most frustrating. So I had to change my protocol and how I changed my shoulders, and then that's when I started to see change.
That's completely different. So before I ask that question, before the interview, I always make a guess of what the guest is going to say, and I was wrong. Now, again, don't even get me started on calves. I'm 6'3", and that's just a nightmare waiting to happen. I've shown my calves once for the audience, and that's never going to happen again because I was too embarrassed. But I would have guessed traps for you would have been my guess for you. But that's just a thing that naturally then I guess just like comes in for a lot of
Traps, you're
people.
right. Traps are my traps are ridiculous. I train them maybe once a week, if that, 3 sets. Same with calves. Calves, I completely ignore sometimes, but even still, I want them to look good and full and vascular and have that nice heart shape.
I'm just remembering those like 1,000 calf raises that I would do during leg workouts, sets of like 100. Just I'd have a couple of hockey sticks that I'd like have my legs on because of course it's Minnesota. So that would it would just still. I've always made the joke I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't grow. They would find a way to not grow. But yeah, and I mean this.
There's always a way.
know everyone tries to give me the advice. I've tried it, but we'll see. If anything does come, like I said, I will, be praising that method, and I'll be, spreading it to everyone. But this is so much more of a mental journey than a physical journey. So many people don't understand that. They'll just notice the physical changes and say, "Oh my God, Shawna, you look completely different and amazing." But a lot of people just don't understand that the mental journey that takes place is 100 times more important than the physical journey. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
Mm, yeah, this is the interesting part of the whole deal because I think throughout your journey in bodybuilding, you transform more and more. So yes, you start out with a strong mentality, but it's more of like, okay, I have this goal, I want to reach it, and then you get there and you're nervous and you perform really well or you don't perform well on stage, and then that can affect you mentally. So it can either, if you win, that'll push you farther faster, but if you lose, you have a lot of work to do, and that's where you start beating yourself up. So you can start off good or you can start off, behind. And I think that was interesting for me because I started out as a natural bodybuilder where if I went into an organization that didn't test for gear, yeah, I was spanked. And so that was hard in my beginning is like, oh man, these girls are chiseled and they're huge and I'm look not like that. So that was the tipping point of me to like make a decision whether or not I wanted to step over the line and do a little bit more and go into the scientific aspects, a little bit of the chemistry, which is part of the sport of bodybuilding. It doesn't have to be, but that with the IFBB and NPC, that's kind of where it's at if you want to excel. But going back to the mindset thing, so just choosing like how far do I want to take this thing, and am I willing to make this a lifestyle choice? Because it is. When you become a bodybuilder, in my opinion, this is something that's going to stay with you because this is part of who you are now. So if you go through your bodybuilding career and you decide, later, really this isn't for me, that's totally fine, because I've been through that path where I started competing for a while and then I'm like, man, this is beating me up like so bad. I'm losing who I am because I'm so focused on my physique. I'm so focused on being better than the next person. I'm constantly being judged, and then that builds up a lot. And you can either be destroyed by it or you can use that as a way to push you forward and say, you know what, I can still do this and maintain who I am and put these other things aside, my ego and all these other things. And I feel like a lot of bodybuilders today are more in that spiritual zone where they're really harnessing, that I can have that mental and physical relationship with the sport. And that actually does help your ability to be disciplined. Because with that, you're fueling your body with good food. You're doing well for your body by taking it to the gym, you're working out hard, you're maximizing your potential, you're totally zoned in and focused to each and every workout, you're feeling every muscle. So you're getting more and more in tune with yourself. It's not just your body, it's you exiting the world and taking that time to really just build yourself.
Well, and even more on just the mindset of this lifestyle. And one of the most unfortunate things is that body dysmorphia, we got to talk about it because
Sure.
as soon as you start working out, you're never going to be big enough. You're never going to be good enough. 99.99% of the general public is going to look at someone like you and say, like, you're huge, you're super strong. And you'll even have times where you're like, I don't feel like I'm huge or strong or ripped.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Because everyone goes through it, and so many people that's the one thing that really they struggle with a lot, that really
Yeah.
takes a lot of people out of this lifestyle.
Sure. Yeah, I know, and I completely understand where people are at with that because I have a client who struggles with comparing himself with other people when he goes to the gym, so it freaks him out. And I'm like, look, you just have to learn how to focus within yourself. And these are like people who like they look to the world to validate who they are and to validate what they're supposed to be and look and what their choices are. And it's easier said than done. I understand that because you're constantly being bombarded on social media with this person is perfect and look at this perfect life and they have all this money and can do all these things and you look this certain way and I don't look that way. So you're always going to self reflect based on what the world is doing. And it's so easy for me to say, okay, just go within, block out the world, do you. Everybody says just do you. But to tell someone that who's stuck there, it's a really difficult thing for me to just transform you in a conversation because this takes time. This is personal development. This is you understanding like I love myself and I'm going to treat my body better by working out and feeding myself. And it's not to compare myself to the guy next door or girl next door.
That's why I always tell people to make sure that you take photos. Obviously, you don't have to share them or anything like that, but at least then when you're having those moments where you don't think that you're big enough or good enough, you can always just look at where you started and realize just the changes that you've already made. But the thing that is just vastly understated about this lifestyle, it's not talked about as much as it should, is the nutrition side of it, because so many people have that stupid idea where if they just work out, and this was me when I was 19 years old, if I just work out, I can eat whatever I want and don't have to worry about it. And yeah, that might last for like a year because you have that young metabolism, but
Mm.
it's going to catch up to you. What have been some of the biggest nutritional changes that you've made in your life throughout this journey?
Um, Honestly, my nutrition hasn't really changed much. My because I maintain my muscle mass, and that's just anyone who trains all the time, like your metabolism, it doesn't really fluctuate much. The only thing that challenges that is hormone changes when you hit like middle age. It can challenge that, because guys will gain fat around their midsection, and that can be attributed to other things than just beer drinking and eating food. So it's balance. It's a balancing act when you get to middle age, but when you're younger, it's more of like, again, it's just your lifestyle choices. It's your ability to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to cut out sugar. I'm going to cut out, if you want to go keto for a while and see how that works. But the thing is, like, you can do every trick in the book, but at the same time, mostly it's about you understanding how to find balance in your food. So, if you want to make sure that you're feeding yourself on a constant basis enough, macros on every level, so you're getting all the vitamins and minerals and fiber and nutrients that your body needs. That's the most important thing, really.
How different is the food in New Zealand as it is here in the States? Are the portions nicer? Was that a shock at all going from that or
Oh God, no, the food here is great. We have a very mixed culture here. So there's a lot of Asians, a lot of Indian people, a lot of Tongans. We have Islanders. So we have a lot of different options here, which is great. And there's fusion food. So if you want to have a good culinary experience, I think New Zealand is probably one of the top places you're going to find that in Auckland, New Zealand.
you mentioned Indian and my stomach already like started to get a little squeezy there. I have my Norwegian skin, that spicy food. I'm sorry. I cannot. I've trialed and error and I have failed every single time. So, but yeah, that is great to have that variety in food because I've talked to people from different countries and you just look at them and you're just like, you've never experienced like actual diversity with food wise. It's kind of sad when you think about it, but
But this is another thing here is like they take care in how they prepare food as well. So you get your plate of food, doesn't matter if it's pancakes and waffles, they're gonna put beautiful flowers and greenery and it just looks insanely good. Like the way that they put their food together, the presentation. And this is another topic that I like to talk about too when it comes to nutrition and you really valuing the food that you're putting in your body. If you're constantly going out and getting fast food or getting food from the convenience store and you're putting that in your body, you're just doing that to shove something in. You're not doing it because it's something you're going to appreciate and your body's going to appreciate. So when you're mindfully taking in mom's food, for example, you get a good home cooked meal. It always feels better than going out to dinner. Why? Because it was made with love. It was made with care, and that feels completely different.
I'm gonna be honest on here. My mom is not the best cook, so I don't know if that's good. Now, like grandparents, that's the better. Or I have an aunt that's a really good cook. But mom, I do love you if you ever do watch this. But we know as a family, like we know, we laugh about it. But no, so that's awesome. And you mentioned before just about like the reaction that you get being a muscular woman, especially in New Zealand. But just in your journey in general, how long did it take for you to accept the fact that like it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea? Because I like to compare it to being a mini celebrity, just because it's human nature when they see something that's not the normal to just be, drawn to it or just stare at it maybe. But how long did it take for you to accept that like, hey, this is just what it is, and I can't control what other people think about me?
Mm, yeah, that's an interesting question because you always wonder what people think about you, no matter what. And I can say, box the world out, blah, blah, blah. But you still, you can look at somebody, you know that they're staring at you, or not look at them and feel their energy staring at you and understand that they're trying, they have all kinds of things going through their mind right now. But again, it's like me diverting my attention away from that and saying, okay, mind your business, let them mind theirs. And if they want to talk to you about it, let them, but let them be. That's it. Just go back into your world and just carry on.
The only time I ever stare is in the gym if someone is like loading up a ridiculous amount of weight. Then you have to stare really at it. And that's the only thing for me. Like if you're doing something that everyone's like, there's no way that he or she can pull that off. Then everyone should stare. But yeah, I've always just found that fascinating, just how people just a lot of times people though too, they just don't understand that your opinions aren't really that warranted to, and just that's a whole different topic that we could talk about that would take us 10 hours to discuss. But that's just been fascinating for me just to learn that, especially through talking to so many bodybuilders on this podcast and just learning what they go through on a daily basis. And just it makes me at least appreciate them even more, just knowing that they go through with all that and still are able to live this lifestyle. But
Yeah, weight training in the gym is just when you get comfortable and you get more knowledge, then you're willing to sit in the front row. And people ask you if you're using the equipment next to you. Like their guys are very, um, well, I would say respectful to me at the gym. And also, I think I feel the intimidation sometimes as well. But they see me train and I can lift some heavy ass weight. And I know sometimes they're like, why am I
well,
not lifting
absolutely.
that
This would
weight?
be me if I saw her in the gym and she was working with me. I was like, oh yeah, you can take it. I'm fine. I'll just go and hide in the corner. No, but like yeah, obviously they see. I mean, it's like you're not a bikini competitor or anything like that, so they can tell. But yeah, and that's one thing that I like about the people in the gym is that you kind of for a lot of them you have to earn their respect through hard work because this is a hard. I mean, you have to work hard for this lifestyle. It's not something that happens overnight, which is one thing that I like a lot about the sport is that your work shows. You can't fake a good physique.
No, yeah, you totally can't. You can't hide it. Um, I don't try to hide my body at all. And yeah, I just again, I want to rock who I am and just enjoy the ride because this is what I work hard for every single day, and this is my life. This is my goal, my journey, and nobody else's business belongs in that. So I stay in my lane, and I know people do come up to me and they say, "Wow, what a great physique you have!" Like I want to look like you. And I've gotten a lot more female clients lately than men, and it used to be the other way around. So it's good that I'm attracting other women, who want to train with me because in the beginning, I'm like, I'm going to be way too intimidating for these people. Because you look at the culture in physiques are different here. I work at Les Mills, and the girls there are very slender, very sleek bodies. They're into a lot of the classes that are there. They don't really do a lot of weight training unless it's on their butt and their legs, but but it's different. Like they see a girl like me come in and they're like, "Oh, what is that?" How do I don't know what to do. They just basically they seem a little paralyzed by it at times, but then I think they're used to my presence now, so they're okay. When people get to know you, it changes their perspective of you, right?
Oh, absolutely. We got to talk about the clothing conundrum because looking the way that you look, clothes aren't really designed especially for muscular women. And
Stretchy clothes,
I was gonna
stretchy.
say, other than stretchy, which obviously you're rocking right now, I was gonna like, how do you cope with that? And plus the fact that you have to have basically two different wardrobes, your off season, and then if you're going on prep or if you're really getting into the thick of things.
Yes. I always wear stretchy clothes, no matter what. I rarely wear oversized clothes, and if I do, it's a sweatshirt. But I like things that suck to my body. I always have, call me old school, but I'm all about like wearing it as a piece of skin on top of my muscles. How about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I always considered it. I'm not gonna say dumb, but like for the people that were on the like super muscular side, it's like if they're trying to cover it up, it's like you really work that hard to not saying that you have to go around and show it off to everyone, but just like
Yeah,
to not just like show people that like, yeah, I worked. When you're putting that much effort into it, it's like there's
yeah.
a reason why doctors get so high and mighty if you don't call them doctor. It's because they work their butt off for that for that title in school. So it's I kind of put that around where it's like if you worked your butt off to be like a top echelon, physique wise, it's yeah, you should at least let people know that like, hey, I've worked my butt off for this. But when it comes to at least the sport of bodybuilding, the number one thing that shocked me the most when I started this podcast is that for so many people that have done it, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than you're working out. It's harder than nutrition. What was your experience like with posing?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's great because I got to work with Chris Cormier. I got to work with Iris Kyle. I got to work with, oh man, a couple other people that were just amazing posers. And I would say they helped me out a ton, but so frustrating because when you think you have a pose nailed, they'll come in and say, "Nope, do it again. Nope, do it again. Do it again. Do it again." And you're just exhausted because you're not only dieting hard and you're training hard, then you're doing your posing straight after and you're working on it for 30 minutes to an hour just trying to nail those poses. And doing them in practice is different than when you're getting on a stage because now you have to take everything that you've been practicing, get on that stage by yourself and next to other people, and you got to nail those poses properly. Knowing that all these people are watching you, understanding that now you're on top of the stage and everybody's down here, so you have to take that perspective and put that into your posing because you have to lean back more because they're down there. So there's all these things that, things are going through your mind all at once when you're up on the stage versus when you're posing in private.
Out of your poses that you did, what was your favorite and what was your least favorite?
Oh man. You know what? I've always loved I've loved the front double bicep pose, right? But with the hip over, but I love I love a front lat spread on my toes because it really pops my quads and shows off the definition. But my front lat spread was my best, and it still is. Like my back is bigger than it ever has been. I know it's really hard to see the perspective of what I've achieved in this video.
We can tell even though you're facing the front. Good God, that's the sign that it's really worked. We can tell just even from going like that. We could tell.
Yeah, and I'm not a shy person, so I'm happy to show that I got some lats and I got a massive back laying on.
Jeez.
We'll just do a perspective
Yeah.
here. I'm nice.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Good God.
So we have a lot more muscle density that I've created, and that's just been just nailing heavy weights and changing again how I've trained. Going into slow movements has really helped me in contracting those long periods of contraction, long periods of negatives. These things matter because if you're not feeling the muscle when you're training, you're not going to feel that when you're posing. And that's where I found was super important is when you're on that stage and you're doing a back double bicep, you want to be able to contract your muscles in your back so when you pull it out, boom, you have all these muscles that are firing at once, and you can, then it looks insanely cool.
I've always told people that aren't really familiar with the sport, it is so much more than just, yeah, doing your front double. You have to be flexing your abs. You have to be flexing your legs. Like, some people don't understand that it's not just the singular pose. That's when a lot of people do, like, oh, it's just bodybuilding. You just go on stage and you pose. And it's like, first of all, do those posing routines for like the hour that they sometimes do when they're training for it. It's harder than most of the workouts that they have, but they just don't understand that your whole body has to be just basically one muscle connected, basically.
Yeah, yeah, you are one one muscle, maybe, I guess that's a good way of putting it, but it's more of like you have a design that has to have that symmetry, and you want to pull out that symmetry and in whatever in that detail, whatever way you can, it's going to look the best for you because everybody's body is designed a little bit differently. And if you have a lagging part, you want to be able to hide that on stage. But ideally, you don't want to come in with weak body parts, right? When you're competing. And I knew when I was competing that it wasn't the level that I needed or wanted to be. And so going up and being, next to these other girls and being humbled has been, it was a very good experience. Um, I know that I had not reached my potential, and I know I'm still leveling up. But again, it's like it's everything boils down to, how hard you work, how good is your program? Are you nailing all those body parts? Your nutrition. Obviously, I was not eating enough. I was afraid of gaining fat. So I would keep my calories low. But instead, now I've really jacked up my calories. I put on more kilos than I've ever, sorry, pounds than I'd ever imagined. I'd be, this is the heaviest I've ever been, the thickest I've ever been, strongest I've ever been. So it's like eating that proper amount of calories for what you're trying to build makes a difference. Not only that, though, I told you about the science. The science matters. So once you get to this level, and this is anybody, you hit a plateau, you train as hard as you can, you're doing everything right, and you're still not making gains. Well, then you can make the decision whether or not you want to level up and then go the science route. So there's all these over the counter supplements you can take, but there's a limit to what those can do.
Yep. I mean, with your journey, you mentioned before that you're not a shy person. Was
Yeah.
that something that you always had, or was it something that maybe bodybuilding helped with? How did you become where you are at right now? Because I found that a lot of bodybuilders do start out with that shy background, and then obviously, if you're going on stage in a bikini, you've kind of gotten over a little bit of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know my story isn't unique in that because, yeah, I was the person that had baggy shirts and sweatpants, and I was in the back of the room with machines hiding. I would occasionally do weights, but it wasn't until I started gaining confidence and knowing what I was doing that I started to be feel better about what I was doing in the gym. And then from there, I saw that my body starting to change. And then it was when my body started to change, I started wearing skimpier clothes in the gym, and I was like, okay, this is a little scary, but I'm doing it, and I get compliments. And once you get compliments, of course, that's going to be empowering to you. So yeah, so I guess it was just getting in shape alone had developed confidence, but it wasn't until I got on the stage and really made myself vulnerable and was judged, and on every level, I really thought, okay, if I can do this, I can do anything. And then after that, I went and got 2 university degrees, and like because there was a point, I think everybody struggles with something, right? And mine was more of like, am I smart enough to get through this? Am I able to put in the time and effort into this over here in order to be successful? But it's the things that I put my heart into the most is the ones I succeeded at. Didn't matter if it was difficult or if I was weak at it. If my heart was there, I always found that that's where the success is.
And I mean, that compliment thing can go a huge way. I remember my dad lied to me a week into my fitness journey and said, "Ryan, you look great. You look amazing. What have you been doing?" I hadn't changed one bit, but you just got to realize, people, that little compliment can go a huge way. So if you see anyone getting started in the gym, make sure, and you know them, make sure to say like, "Hey, wow, you look amazing. What are you doing differently?" Because yeah, that really does help a lot of times. That people just don't understand. Obviously, they know what's going on mentally, so just that compliment can really go a long way. But We got to
Yeah.
talk about, because you mentioned before that your shoulders were your lagging body part, and shoulders by far is the number one lagging body part that I hear on this podcast. So the women that listen to this would kill me. What do you do for shoulders now? Because obviously we can see that that's, not that big of a problem right now. So what does your
No,
shoulder workout look like?
shoulders are big. They're huge, actually, right now. Um, I did a lot of shoulder pressing, so I do tons of heavy shoulder pressing. Some people can't do that because of their, they might have bad rotator cuffs and stuff like that. So what I do is, for those people that I'm helping to build big shoulders, I put them on an incline and I have them do their flies this way. And it's more of how you hold your hands in front, kind of at this position at the bottom, and then you come up and raise. And that's going to really nail the outer shoulders. But what's going to actually stimulate growth with people who have hard time building is going for higher reps, going for static holding, higher reps, static holding, and slow negatives. So controlling the weight, I would say, would be the most important thing to understand when trying to grow something. Yeah.
Well, and I tell people to make sure that you realize that there's more than just one part to your shoulder as well. Because a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I'm going to go trace shoulders," and I say, "Oh, well, what part?" And they just go, "Oh, the shoulder part." And it's like, well, there's different exercises for different parts of the shoulder, and then I got to explain to them.
There's something I'd like to add to what you just said, because I neglected to train my front delts because I had someone say, "Oh, you're getting plenty when you're doing chest presses." No, not exactly true. No, I do upright rows, I do underhand raises, I do front raises with one arm on a cable. So there's so many ways you can, heaps of exercises you can do for that. But you want to choose the one that you feel the most in your body, because again, we're skeletally all a little bit different. So you have to understand like what your joints are able to do, and also improve flexibility so that you can have more range of motion on certain exercises. And that's going to help development, opening up the fascia muscles. Getting massages really helps. And I know a lot of bodybuilders do get deep tissue massage because it does help open up the muscles so that they can, get all the crap out and get that scar tissue rubbed out.
Whereas me, I see the after photos of some of those where they look like they just got the crap beat out of them by someone because they're all bruised up, and everyone's like, "No, it doesn't really hurt that much." And then you wake up the next morning, and that was my introduction to it. I've been to a few massages, and yes, they are. You almost want to marry the person that's doing the massage to at the moment, because it's so good. But I
Yeah.
recommend that to anyone out there doing this. But there's so many myths and misconceptions about this sport that people who live this lifestyle get every day from people in the public. What is your favorite myth and misconception, and how do you always respond to it?
Um, uh, the, not, I don't know if it's a favorite one, but how about if I start with the one I hate the most? Is that in order to be a bodybuilder, you have to take steroids. It's not true. Yeah, it gives you an edge. It takes you to another level, maybe, and it helps, with your gains and all these things. But and dialing in your body and tightening it and blah blah blah. There's a lot to that subject itself. I would say that would probably be my least favorite thing, but I like to set the record straight on that, saying, that's not okay. You can't think that way. Um, Myth that all female bodybuilders. Oh no, I'm not gonna say that one.
You can say it off the record when we're done recording. Yeah.
Oh man, there's just there's so many ones that go to the sexual side, and I could go into that. Yeah, yeah.
I hate to interrupt you, but how do you think that rabbit hole was for me when I first started interviewing people, and then they told me about that, and then I stupidly decided to research on Google just one night, and I just almost wanted to burn my laptop after after finding that out. So yeah, I found out the hard way of that too, and I was like, wait, what? They weren't lying with that? So, but I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a really tough one for me. The whole idea of what people feel is attractive, what they find attractive in a physique, in a body, and I think it's a kind of like for a lot of people a combination of both. So there is this female bodybuilder, for example, strong persona, in a lot of accounts, but very sensitive to a beautiful, hard muscular body, and that looks amazing. But some are really afraid to jump into that world. They don't know if they like it. They don't know if they should like it because it's just confusing to them. Because you have a woman that's strong, and should the man be strong and be the one who's muscular and dominating? I guess is the word. But I feel like, in my personal experiences, that a lot of guys really admire a woman who is powerful on every account. Physical is doesn't have to be there, but they really love that mental power that a woman can own. And when you are a woman who has a big muscular body, or even chiseled muscles, and you're not big, that's okay. It still looks powerful, and it still gives a guy a feeling of, wow, this is like, I love feeling this kind of body. I like the person inside of it because I know that they've achieved this body through this huge mental capacity that they have, and this discipline, and there's something about it that just really turns me on. And I just find that very interesting. Like, there's more guys out there that enjoy that, I think, than not.
For me, it's always been, I just appreciate, the hard work where it's like, I might not be attracted to some of it, but it's like, I still can appreciate what goes into it and just how long it takes. And I think if a lot of people just for a second experience just how much the sport requires time wise and just how much commitment it requires, I think there would be so many less people that would make, snarky and nasty comments when they realize just how hard this sport is and how much work and dedication it requires.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then when they understand that, I think you gain respect when they understand that. So again, it's, seeing someone at first sight that looks, strong and muscular, it's a female, shouldn't, maybe not used to seeing that, is alarming. But then once you get to know like everything about what it takes for them to achieve that, you do level up a little bit in how you think about that person. Or maybe you don't. Maybe it's the other way around. But I say more. I have more people that support me than troll me and say negative, horrible things.
Absolutely. It definitely is something that, and I think it's getting better as time goes on. Even in the 5 years that I've done this podcast, it's gotten more and more accepted and it's gotten better. So hopefully, 5 years from now will be even better. And then, it's always just a never ending process. But I do think a lot more people, because I think there's also so many more fit people that you can see on Instagram or you can see on other social media sites where you realize that there are a lot more fit people out there than you would generally assume.
Oh yeah, it's become, I think, more normalized now, which is good. So that does help us a lot. And even the girls who aren't really big, who are in shape, might have some muscle tone. They claim that they're getting some backlash from that. Like, what do you want to look like a man? It's like, it's again, you get what you pay attention to. So just let it go. There's a very small percentage of people that have this pea brain that feel the need to say something negative towards you to try to bring you down, but in essence, they're looking like an idiot because why would you spend your time searching for things you don't like and saying something bad and negative about that? What's wrong with you? Like, what's wrong with your life that you're doing that? Yeah, so that's what goes through my head, and I think that's the right attitude to take on.
I hear that all the time from people that, like, yeah, it's, and you got to realize that, like, yeah, you never know what people are going through. And 99.9% of the time, that person just doesn't have a good self image and they're taking it out on other people. And if, anyone that always says that, oh, you look like a man, I always tell guests to respond, well, what kind of men are you hanging out with then? If that's what the men that you're, so I just want to know that first of all. But yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
good.
it doesn't bother me if they say things like that. It's just more of like, when they try to discount my hard work and say, "Oh, it's just steroids," that's the part that bothers me because that's not true. I probably the most minimal, well, one of the most minimal people that use these things, but I still use them. I'm not going to lie about that. It's just when they think that's all it takes, it's not all it takes. It takes so that's a small percentage of it. Everything else is hard work, dedication, time, desire, discipline, focus, extreme focus, and a well thought out plan.
Yeah, always told people it's. I mean, you can do all the drug. I know guys that take steroids that don't even work out, and they just take them because they thought that it would make them look good. No, it doesn't. You still have to put the hard work in. It's just, oh my god, I could tell so many stories about guys that just thought like, oh, I'll just do some GH and I'll be fine. And it's like, dude, you don't even work out. What's the point of it? You're just wasting money. So yeah, I have so many stories like that where it's just people do not
Yeah.
understand that you still got to put the hard work in, and it's still
I don't know that anytime you do something like that, you don't know what you're doing. You're potentially putting your body at risk. You're damaging your organs if you're not doing it in a safe way where you're actually seeing a doctor and getting your bloods monitored and things like this. This is so important. Like anytime you do something like that, you're putting foreign substances in your body, you should be monitored and doing it properly. If you have someone that can help you with that, which is usually a doctor, but those are hard to find too. They're willing to give you any kind of sound advice. If they just do things willy nilly, and that's not right.
yeah. Well, and before, I mean, since we are doing extra questions, and I was told I was maybe gonna ask this, but I was like, no, the gym bro in me just has to know what the do you do for biceps, because you have pythons, and I wanna try to up my bicep game. So what the hell are you doing for arms? Because I mean, the gym bro in me just got way too curious.
Yeah. No, this is a good one. Do you ever do like single arm stuff
Yeah.
when you're working out? Okay. So everything has to do with the angle that you're doing, right? So if you're doing a bicep curl, and I'll just demonstrate with my little chair here. So you're doing a bicep curl like this,
Yeah.
and you're coming all the way down. You don't straighten it all the way. Keep that slight bend. You keep the flex going, and then you come up just a little bit at the top. So it's when you're doing a preacher curl, instead of going like this, and you come up and you go behind your head on a preacher, and then you pull it down. That's going to get your peak so much better than if you're just going to raise and lower like this. So everything is about lifting and getting that extra peak. That's how I got an inch. I got an inch on my bicep extra within a year. Yeah, just by changing that. I do reverse curls. Reverse curls are important. I always try to do movements that mimic posing. So if I'm doing a high cable curl, I'm making sure my wrist is turned back. So when I do a back double bicep, this peak is going to pop up. So you can see the difference from going like this to going like this. And then you see the length of the muscle going. Always want to work the length of the muscle, not just short movements. And I guess that would be my biggest tip of the day when it comes to biceps.
It's better than any other gym bro that you ask where they just say, oh, just do curls, you'll be fine. And it's just like, yeah, that's just it's all about angles too. Like I've heard that too. And one thing that I've done that really helped is twisting the arm too as you're coming up too, and just little stuff like that just
Oh yeah,
works in other things.
yeah, sure. But a lot of people also discount hammer curls. If you do hammer curls properly, that's going to help a lot with development of your biceps. So if you're doing like these, fuck that stuff. I'm sorry, but screw that. You can do this, but slow and control. A wiper, I call it a windshield wiper because you're kind of like wiping it across your body. That's going to have a lot more time under tension than this. It's just momentum.
And don't forget those tries, everyone, too. That's what I always make sure to tell people. The tries take up so much more of your arm. I was blessed with really nice tries, so I could always tell people, like, I can slag a little bit in my bicep workouts because the tries really do make up for it. So people remember that. They make up, they make up much more of the arm, too. So it's a nice little
shape to the entire arm. Yeah, without those triceps there to fill out this spot there. Just bumps on your arms.
Guess like Shawna, everyone just really want to make me go and do biceps for basically the rest of the year, basically to try to get him to gain. So that's just ridiculous. But yeah. And if someone were to walk up to you and say, Shawna, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed? It can be more than one too. I've realized that after asking it to so many people.
Well, I don't know, because again, I haven't competed in a while. I do watch and see what's going on, but I guess I'd like to see more people stepping up to help sponsor the girls. I would like to see more businesses, wanting to help out the girls. Um, there isn't enough of that, and a lot of girls are resorting to using OnlyFans as their main source of income. And I'd love to see girls getting relationship with businesses where even fitness companies, but they're so focused on having these different body types in their clothing. They don't want the highest level person wearing their clothes because again, that's also intimidating to some people. And even in the gyms today, it's really interesting. I'm changing the subject a little bit, but I find it fascinating that now they're telling us, well, we don't want to bring bodybuilders into the gym. We don't even want bodybuilder trainers training people because it's going to be a deterrent to the average person who wants to come to the gym. They're going to be intimidated by it. So you're taking the atmosphere of a gym that was created by people like bodybuilders, and now you're saying, okay, we don't want you anymore. We got what we need. Now we're going to push forward helping the average person, and you guys can go because you're no longer what we want people to push for. And that's, again, it still comes down to mindset of the person, right? What they're comparing themselves to. You can look at somebody who's big and muscular and think, okay, you're an inspiration to me. I want to look like you. And then take that out of the equation. Now they have like what? Now where are they? Who is your inspiration? That person you see on social media. You want to look like Kim Kardashian, and then you have everyone doing the same exact exercises, in the gym. So they're just doing booty hip bridge thrusters and one-legged glute presses, and like it's really hard to watch this happen because we were the pioneers of what the gym actually is. Now you can't grunt, you can't use chalk, you can't slam weights, you can't yell. It's just like it's a sensitive culture that we're entering, very sensitive. And whereas I'm a sensitive person and I respect everyone, but there's a point where it's gone too far, where people have just really become sissified. You know what I mean? It's just very.
I have never revealed political leanings on this podcast, but I agree with you more than I could probably say. So yeah, I understand. Yeah, I agree with you 1,000,000%. Where I mean, every gym bro and their brother has a poster of The Rock in their room, and it's like that's why I thought it's so funny that they were telling bodybuilders that you can't train in the gym anymore, coach in the gym because people don't want to look like that. That's like telling a pro golfer if you're at like a putting green or something like that, don't go around because people don't want to be like you, and that's just so stupid. That should be the example where people are like, hey, because I hear this all the time from people who go to trainers. Obviously, some people might be like, hey, I don't want to look like you, but I know that you know what you're talking about, so you can help me achieve the version of myself that I want to look like.
100%. Like, it doesn't mean if you look like that, you're going to transform them into you, because that's not. You're walking around with a plethora of knowledge and you look like you do. And that's the kind of people, I would want to work with on any level. If somebody is like a tech guru and they look like a computer, I'm going to like go with you.
Exactly. I don't understand that. If you had like, yeah, like I said, like if you had The Rock and then you had some average guy and you're like, who do you want to be a personal trainer? What is the person going to say? That's what you're talking about. Yeah, like with these times as well, where you're just, hopefully there'll be some pushback eventually and people will just kind of sort of come to their senses and realize like, hey, we went a little too far on some things, but you never know it these days. But when we do talk to you in a year, because I'd love to have you back on in a year and just see what you're up to. What are some goals that you like to have for yourself? What are some things that you'd like to have achieved when we have you on in a year?
Well, hopefully I'll be prepping for a show, because that's something I've been gearing myself up towards mentally for a while now, just to kind of measure myself up and see what I've been able to achieve all this time. I like to put on another 6, maybe 10 kilos, if that's even possible. Yeah, I want to really blow up, and we'll see
You're
what
barely
happens.
fitting in the screen now. Good God, imagine 10 more kilos on that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's interesting because I'm leveling up in ways I never have before. So I'm kind of in the Super Saiyan mode, and I'm, ready to take on every last bit drop of potential that I have and put it in to my training and my goals. So,
That's awesome. And oh, whoops, no, you go ahead.
no, that's okay. No, but I do. I am promoting my brand, so I will be doing a clothing line. I have a Team Strong clothing line, and it's pretty cool stuff. This is the back, and it's definitely me in the picture, and the front. So this is my logos that I'll be using. Sometimes I'll put it on the sleeve, which looks really really cool on your arm, especially if you're flexing. So yeah, so
Do some of them come with the cutoffs in case the people want them?
oh yeah, I
Okay,
have
good.
a
I
couple
was,
things.
yeah.
So right now, I'm working with different manufacturers and different designs, but I'll be getting my stuff out soon. So with my between my online training and my merchandise, I really expect to see a lot more happen by next year. And then also me on stage, hopefully. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, just message me when that gets launched, and I'd be glad to plug it because yeah, I just love supporting the guests that I have on. And lastly, being that you work with people, and so many people have so many excuses, which I always find hilarious as to why they can't get in shape. What's the one that you hear the most, and how do you like to respond to that? Because oh my god, if I had a nickel for every time that I heard people's excuses for not getting in shape.
Mm, the biggest one is I don't have time or I can't afford it. Like those two things. But you can't afford a gym membership. It's not a thing. I mean, yes, you can work out at home, but if you cut out the things that you don't need in your budget, you can definitely fit in a gym membership. They're cheap. But the time thing is funny because if you have time to sit and watch TV, you have time to do that. You have time to work your body as well. I think it's just mostly people get stressed out in their jobs and they focused on making a living rather than making their body feel better and look better so that they're more charged to do more. It motivates you. When you look good and you feel good, you're going to do more in other aspects of your life. So it's a tool. It's not something that's going to hold you back. It's not something that takes your time. It's something that's going to give you more time. It's that I mean that's a big argument. Like yeah, anyone can say, I have a family, I have all these other responsibilities. I get it. And you're tired. Everybody's tired. But hey, you're not a machine. You're actually a living, functioning organism. You have to take care of that. Otherwise, you're going to get fucked off by your own body in a few years from now. It's going to say, yep, you did enough to me. I'm done.
And I hate to play the comparison game, but like I've talked to moms of six that have full-time jobs and they're still able to they compete. So it's like it
Yeah.
is possible. Now again, it's not for everyone, and your time people do use their time differently, but saying that you don't have that amount of time in the day, I mean, even presidents used to, used to at least be in somewhat physical good shape, because they would find the time of the day. So it is possible. It really does just, come down to priorities. But before I wrap this up, you did mention before that you do more sort of like a time under tension with your training, and that's always been fascinated by me because I was always introduced to that. So I've been doing this time under tension
Yes.
like the whole time. When did you come into contact with that? Had you always been doing it, or was it something that you've just recently started to incorporate?
No, it's something I had been doing, but not enough of.
Okay.
So I just started incorporating everything that I do and a lot more of it. And not afraid of going, I vary my reps. Sometimes I do high rep day, low rep day, or it depends on the body part. It's just kind of depends on what I'm working on. But always I try to go slow and controlled because I want to feel every muscle firing as I'm working. And you can't do that when you're going fast. You won't feel it. It's going to be a lot of momentum and endurance that's happening during those. But there's a time and a place for it. So you do your slow reps and then you do some fast reps. So it's not just one or the other. Sometimes they're combined together, which you probably already know that.
Yeah, I obviously, I mean, I was just introduced to burnouts early on, which was my first experience with somewhat time under tension, especially if you're doing curls and you go down from like 60 and then you go all the way down to 10 eventually, but you go slower. But and then my favorite thing was always the biggest guy in the gym when he would get down to like those 10 pounds. I would give him so much crap and be like, "Oh, you struggling with those 10 pounds? Is that really hard for you?" And then I'd be prepared to run when he's like 2 reps away from getting done. So you got to make sure that you're doing that. But yeah, I've always anytime someone brings up time retention, I have to at least mention it because in case someone's watching this podcast for the first time and doesn't watch any other ones, it is very important. People gotta really look into it because first of all, it also helps prevent injury, which is something that you're going to deal with if you're at her level at least. I mean, everyone that I've talked to has gotten injured at least once or twice, so it does really help mitigate that. So yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Well done.
yeah. Well, Shawna, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us. I absolutely. I absolutely think, like I've told her before, that what she's doing is such a positive thing for the sport, and everyone can go and follow her Instagram, her YouTube channel. I'll leave a link for all that stuff down below. And Team Strong, obviously, when that gets launched, let me know, and I'll plug it. I just love doing it. And again, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again, Ryan. Thank you, everyone who's listening. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, all right, everyone. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.